This might be the biggest transformation we've ever seen from Ramadan Ondash. A fighter who was already dangerous inside the cage, is now hinting at something even more terrifying. And the question everyone is asking right now is simple. What exactly has changed during his 3-month training camp? But that's not the full story, not even close. Because Ondash didn't just train harder, he trained different. For weeks, he stayed locked inside an intense camp, away from the spotlight, away from distractions. And what happened inside that camp might shock every future opponent who steps in front of him. But wait, it gets even crazier. Before this transformation, Ondash was already known for his aggressive fighting style, fast combinations, pressure-heavy attacks. But insiders say something was missing, something opponents were starting to figure out. And that's where everything changed. During this long training camp, he didn't just repeat the same drills, he rebuilt his entire striking system. And this is where things changed. Sources close to the camp suggest he focused heavily on unpredictable striking angles, new kicking variations, and timing traps designed to break rhythm. But nobody expected this. Ondash himself hinted that fans might see more kicks than ever before. And that one line alone has sent shockwaves through the MMA community. Because if that's true, it means his entire fighting identity might be evolving right in front of our eyes. But why now? Why would a fighter at his stage suddenly reinvent his style? And this is where the mystery deepens. 3 months is not a short time in combat sports, it's enough time to fix weaknesses, or completely rebuild a fighter from scratch. And Ondash didn't waste a single day. Every session reportedly pushed him beyond exhaustion, endless striking drills, defensive adjustments, and non-stop sparring against elite partners designed to pressure test his weaknesses. But here's the twist. The more he trained, the more unpredictable he became. Coaches noticed something unusual. His timing started changing, his feints became sharper, and his kicking range expanded beyond what they had seen before. And this is where things get even more intense. Because opponents who once felt comfortable against him, might no longer recognize the fighter they are preparing for. Imagine stepping into the cage expecting the same aggressive striker. But instead, you face someone who attacks from angles you didn't study, kicks you didn't prepare for, and timing you can't predict. That's the version of Ondash that is being hinted at right now. But wait, there's more. Fans are now speculating whether this transformation is linked to his next big matchup. Because fighters don't usually reveal improvements like this unless something big is coming. And Ondash knows it. He didn't just say he improved, he teased it. Almost like a warning. Almost like he's telling future opponents, you're not ready for what's coming next. And that alone has turned this into one of the most talked about training updates in MMA right now. But the biggest question still remains unanswered. Did this 3-month camp truly unlock a new version of Ramadan Ondash, or is this just psychological pressure before his next fight? Because if even half of what he's hinting at is real, then the entire division might be about to see a completely different fighter walk into the cage. And nobody knows what happens next. Or who will be the first to face this, new weapons, version of Ondash. But is this real evolution, or just mind games before the comeback? The MMA world is still trying to process what Ramadan Ondash just hinted at. A fighter known for pressure, aggression, and fast striking, is now talking like someone who has been completely rebuilt. And that's where the mystery deepens even further. Because insiders are not just talking about improvement, they are talking about evolution. But wait, it gets even crazier. During this 3-month training camp, Ondash wasn't just training harder, he was training smarter. Every single day reportedly followed a strict system: morning striking corrections, afternoon conditioning overload, and night sparring wars that pushed him to the edge. And this is where things change. Coaches noticed something strange happening in real time. His kicks started landing differently, not just faster, but more deceptive. And that one detail is what's making everyone nervous. Because he didn't just say, "I improved," he hinted at more kicks. But what kind of kicks? Nobody knows yet. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this dangerous. But there's another layer to this story. Ondash didn't just work on offense. He reportedly rebuilt his defensive reactions too. Head movement, distance control, and counter timing were all refined under extreme pressure drills. And this is where it gets intense. Because when a fighter upgrades both offense and defense at the same time, they don't just improve, they transform into something new. But wait, there's more. Training partners reportedly struggled to predict his rhythm. One round he would explode forward aggressively, the next he would slow everything down, only to suddenly switch pace and attack from unexpected angles. And that unpredictability is becoming his biggest weapon. But nobody expected this level of change. Some sparring partners reportedly said it felt like fighting two different fighters in one body. One moment, standard pressure striker. Next moment, a completely different timing-based kicker. And that contradiction is what's worrying future opponents. Because how do you prepare for someone who keeps changing inside the same fight style? But here's where things get even deeper. Ondash himself hinted that this camp was not just about physical training. It was also mental. He reportedly worked on composure under chaos, staying calm while absorbing pressure, and making smarter decisions inside exchanges. And this is where everything connects. A fighter with new kicks, improved timing, and mental control. That combination is extremely dangerous. But wait, it gets even crazier. Because fans noticed something unusual in his recent messages. There was confidence, yes, but also a kind of warning tone. Almost like he knows something his opponents don't. And that's why speculation is exploding right now. Is Ondash preparing for a major fight announcement? Or is he simply building psychological pressure before stepping back into the cage? Because fighters don't usually talk like this unless something big is coming. And this is where the tension reaches another level. If even half of these improvements are real, then his next opponent might be walking into a completely different version of Ramadan Ondash. Not the fighter they studied. Not the fighter they watched before. But something new, unpredictable, and possibly unstoppable. And nobody knows how that ends. Because no footage has fully revealed what he has actually developed. Only hints, only words, only speculation. But the MMA world is watching closely now. Waiting for the moment he steps back inside the cage. Because that's where all questions will finally be answered. Or will it only create even more questions? And the biggest mystery still remains. What exactly did Ramadan Ondash unlock in this 3-month transformation? The anticipation around Ramadan Ondash is reaching a boiling point now. Every new detail coming out of his camp is adding more fuel to the fire. And the MMA world is starting to realize something important. This is not just a routine training update anymore. This feels like the build-up to a major shift. But wait, it gets even crazier. Because now the focus is not just on what he trained, but why he trained this way. And the answers are not fully clear yet. Ondash reportedly spent this entire 3-month camp isolating weaknesses that opponents had started to exploit. Small gaps in distance, predictable entries, and repetitive striking patterns. And this is where things changed. Instead of ignoring them, he attacked them directly. Every weakness became a daily punishment drill. Every flaw became a repetition cycle until it disappeared. But nobody expected this level of obsession. Training partners say the intensity kept increasing week after week. What started as normal corrections turned into extreme situational sparring. One round he was forced to fight only with counters. Another round only with kicks. And sometimes, only defensive movement with no offense allowed. And this is where things got dangerous. Because that kind of training doesn't just improve a fighter. It rewires them. But wait, there's more. Ondash reportedly began experimenting with unorthodox striking patterns. Unusual kick setups, delayed attacks, and rhythm breaks designed to confuse timing-based fighters. And this is exactly why his more kicks hint is so important. Because it's not just volume. It's variation. And that changes everything. But here's the shocking part. Some sparring partners reportedly said they couldn't predict his next move even after multiple rounds. And that is extremely rare at elite level. Because fighters usually adapt, they learn patterns. But Ondash's new style appears to break that learning process entirely. And this is where things escalate even further. His conditioning also reportedly reached a new level. Longer exchanges, faster recovery, and sustained pressure without visible fatigue. And that combination with unpredictable striking is a nightmare scenario for any opponent. But wait, it gets even more intense. Because whispers from the camp suggest Ondash is preparing for a statement fight. Not just a win, not just a comeback, but a performance that forces people to re-evaluate his entire career trajectory. And that's why fans are now paying attention like never before. Because fighters don't usually evolve quietly like this. They evolve before something big. A comeback fight, a title push, or a rivalry showdown. Something is clearly building behind the scenes. And now the pressure shifts to his next opponent. Whoever that is. They will not be facing the same version of Ondash they studied on tape. They will be facing a fighter who may have completely rewritten his style. But here's the final twist. Even with all these reports, no one has seen full confirmation yet. Only hints. Only training claims. Only controlled information coming out of camp. Which leaves one massive question hanging in the air. Is Ramadan Ondash truly a transformed fighter ready to shock the division? Or is this the most calculated mind game of his career before a big reveal? Everything now leads to a single moment come when the cage door closes stepping back inside the cage. And the MMA world holding its breath. Because after weeks of hints, whispers, and training camp rumors, the expectation has completely shifted. This is no longer about whether he improved. It's about how much he has changed. But wait, it gets even crazier, because analysts are now split into two groups. One side believes this is real evolution. A fighter who has upgraded his striking arsenal, sharpened his timing, and added unpredictable kicking threats. The other side thinks this is strategic hype. A psychological game designed to build fear before the actual fight even begins. And that tension is what makes this story so explosive. But here's the key detail everyone is focusing on. His own words, maybe more kicks this time. Simple. But loaded with meaning. Because that sentence alone suggests a shift in fighting identity. Not just an adjustment, but a potential reinvention. And this is where everything becomes unpredictable. Because if his kicking game has truly expanded, then opponents can no longer prepare for a single pattern. They have to prepare for multiple layers of attack. High kicks, low kicks, timed counters, switching angles. And that's where fights are often decided. But wait, it gets even more intense. Training reports suggest his pace control has also improved. Meaning he can now switch between explosive bursts and calm setups without losing rhythm. And that makes him even harder to read. Because when a fighter controls rhythm and range, they control the entire fight. But here's the shocking part. Some insiders believe this version of Ondash is built specifically for a statement finish. Not just scoring points. Not just surviving exchanges. But forcing a moment that completely changes public perception. And that's why the pressure is building. Because whoever stands across from him next will be the first real test of this rumored transformation. No more speculation. No more training clips. Only reality inside the cage. And that's where everything gets exposed. But there's still one final question nobody can answer yet. Was this 3-month camp the moment Ramadan Ondash truly unlocked a new fighting version of himself? Or will the hype collapse the moment real resistance shows up? Because in MMA, training stories don't win fights. Performance does. And soon, the world will find out which side this story belongs to. And when that cage door closes, everything changes, or everything gets exposed.